You know, it's been a hard couple of weeks. I've been back and forth. I'm joking. I can't do that again. You can't repeat your content so quickly. I wouldn't do that to you. But we're going to talk about Mercedes, some F1 news, and I want to talk about the fan base specifically. No longer am I taking aim at one Toto Wolf. Listen, let me give Toto Wolf some flowers. I know I've put the bloody thumbnail up there talking about toxicity, but on this occasion, I'm not talking about Toto Wolf. I'm talking about the fan base. Toto is absolutely worthy of praise. I mean, this isn't me walking back anything that I've said over the past 24, 48 hours. Absolutely not. Mercedes are worthy of criticism, and we will get to that in short order because you guys apparently like it when we're talking about Mercedes. I don't want to come on here and talk about Mercedes and diatribe about Toto and Lewis and the SH1T car, etc, every single time, but you guys like it, and of course it's a bloody hot topic. Oh, is this a Mercedes channel, Cameron? Can't you talk about anything? We're going to talk about F1 news on this video that is transpiring this morning that I'm trying to make. There are lots of different bits and bobs. Carlos Sainz, I want to talk about Hopium potentially. Can he beat Max Verstappen? Maybe not, but I like the cut of Ferrari's jib and Carlos Sainz's thus far season to date. But in the first instance, I need to talk about Mercedes fans. Toto Wolf, let me put some respect on his name to make this balanced. I always believe in objectivity and balance, and maybe I have been a bit harsh on Toto and Lewis and George. It's a mess at the moment, and maybe as a fan of the sport and Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton, maybe I should put some respect on their name and be a true subservient fan. Make sure I carry on buying the merch and support them at their worst so that I can love them at their best. Okay, right, cool. In this first instance though, to segment this stream, I want to talk about Toto Wolf and the good things that he has done. Absolutely, he has been a pioneer. He's done god tier levels of things for the marketing value of Mercedes. He's been instrumental in carrying Mercedes from where they were in 2010 to where they are now in 2024. And within that, you've got to talk about the 8-time constructors. You've got to talk about the 7-time drivers championship, 6 of which have been allocated to Lewis Hamilton, 1 of which has gone to Nico Rosberg. They have been god tier. This is unprecedented levels of team driven success. And that's the bottom line, right? Like, you've got to give it to them. But does that mean, as a fan of the team, that I should be grateful? Gratitude. When we start to, here's the problem with F1 and the space, right? We start to use these bloody words that are requisite, are commensurate only with some serious real life circumstance. Gratitude and entitlement. Like, what are we talking about? This is like a sport. If you want to leverage some actual real word verbiage and terminology at a sport, I think we're missing the point here. This is a sport driven, participated in by millionaires, billionaires even. Toto Wolf is that. Like, he's a serious guy, Toto Wolf. Like, far be it for me to put some disrespect on that fella's name. In business, he's unparalleled. In F1, erstwhile, he is unparalleled in terms of the success and the way he's grown that team. He's absolutely worthy of his flowers. However, it's now 2024, and you can argue that it's a very different skill set required to get a team to the top on the back of the work that Ross Brawn and Schumacher did to turning around a ship that's been going in the wrong direction unexpectedly. Now, whether Toto Wolf has that in his toolbox, has those skills, I'm not close enough to the circumstance to say definitively right. Potentially he is, but has he demonstrated that hitherto? You could argue not. But I think on the back of the tweet that they put out talking about, well, if you don't love me at my worst, then you never deserve to love me at my best, putting up the pictorial of the W12 as versus the W15, I think on the back of that, we have a more insidious issue. And here's where I talk about it. I'll tell you a story. I was on Twitter, the cesspit of all things F1, by the way. I was on Twitter yesterday and I was getting called out massively for being entitled, for talking about my opinion and being overly critical, not being grateful enough for Mercedes, who have gifted my driver 6 world championships. Like, what are we talking? Honestly, like, I came on here to be objective, Cameron, today. I didn't want to go scorched earth yet again, but the fan base absolutely is worthy of criticism. The type of criticism that Mercedes PR and social media leveraged, probably not. That's not the type of criticism I think that the fan base deserved. But the irony is not lost on me that the fan base internally is doing the same thing that I'm criticising Mercedes for doing, and worse, doing this bloody internal tribalism thing. Oh, Cameron, you need to be grateful for all the grateful. What is this? What the fudge is this? Grateful for what? Grateful. I need to be grateful for for my parents and the education that they've given me. Grateful is something that you are for your family and your loved ones. Grateful because Mercedes gave my favourite driver 6 world championships. What? I just don't understand where these people get off from. And this proselytising thing about who talks in these imperatives about a sport? I think these are Johnny No mates, that need some life experience and to get them some friends in real life and not just on social media and Twitter, telling me about what I need to do. No, what you need to do is go and get some mates and some friends who can have a proper conversation with, not on Twitter Spaces telling me about what I need to do in imperative terms. Well, Cameron, you need to go and be grateful for the championships that they gifted Lewis Hamilton. Gifted? Get the fudge out of here, man. As if Lewis Hamilton didn't have any hand in ultimately, you give him the car, right? The wheels commensurate with winning a championship. But Lewis has still got to get in there every single race weekend and risk his life. I think that's a infinitely greater sacrifice and risk than anything that those engineers have put. Lewis and I need to be grateful for, man. Grateful. You know what? There are racial undertones in this. When people talk about this sort of you've got to be careful. The language of racism is very different in 2024 than it ever has been hitherto. When people say you need to be grateful, what are you talking about? And I don't like talking about the R word on an F1 channel, but I digress. The F1 space, as far as its fandom, has issues. It's all new, right? And it's all very toxic and tribal. Hence why you get these bots on F1 Twitter who are just telling you, very proselytizing in the way that they talk. And I am absolutely out of that. I shall not have it. I don't keep those type of friends in real life around me. And I've got some day zero ones. Like, I'm nearly 40 years old. And I've got people that have been around me who I trust for the past, when I was at secondary school, grammar school, since I was 11 years old, dudes that hold me to account. So I'm not about to, they would never talk to me like that. So why am I even thinking of indulging that sort of talk on Twitter with internet friends? You've got to be having an absolute giraffe. But I digress. There is something wrong with the space more broadly and the entitlement with which people think they can talk to you as a grown bloody man, as if I've already got 2 parents. I don't need 2 more. Joker people. I digress. That's why there is some serious things wrong with this space. Do me a favour and smash the like. But I digress. Right, I want to talk about Carlos Sainz Jr. because I went back and watched in between races. I do tend to go back and re-watch some of the content and just revisit it with fresh eyes, right? And everything that I'm hearing about from Carlos Sainz Jr. is impressing me massively. I feel like he's grown massively. I've always been super impressed with his race savvy, his ability to think his way through a race in real time. A la Monaco a couple of years back when he probably should have won that race, but for a dawdling Williams coming out the pits that ultimately blocked him and hindered his progress in the race owing to track position. He's always exhibited this god tier level of ability to think his way through a race and a championship. And as I was watching back the driver's press conference, I'm listening to Carlos Sainz Jr. and I'm thinking, can this dude really win this championship? Sounds outrageous, right? The thesis that I'm positing here. But let me explain to you where I am with this. Stranger things have happened, right? Stranger things have happened in the weird and quirky world that is F1. 2016, I never expected Nico Rosberg to be able to take it to Lewis Hamilton. Granted, that year he was very fortuitous and Lewis had reliability issues and his mind was going everywhere, chasing Nicole Scherzinger et al. But luck, they say, is when fortune meets preparation, when circumstance meets preparation. And I think Carlos Sainz will need luck to even keep tabs of Max Verstappen this year. But if he gets that luck, let me not guess for a second that he's not prepared enough to take advantage of that. In the press conference, post-Japan even, he talked to a couple different things. He talked about Ferrari's rate of progress, how they're expediting for their learning curve. Since he's talked about the development and the upgrades that he's anticipating they'll bring as early as Imola. Carlos Sainz has said between now and then they're going to struggle to keep hold of Max Verstappen and that RB20. But if they can, at that point, he's expecting those upgrades to do one of these as far as the gap between them and Red Bull. And I'm here for that, ladies and gents. That's what we need if we are invested in a competitive 2024 season. It's people, drivers and engineers that are talking like that can do it. I will be honest. I'm here for Carlos Sainz Jr. and Charles Leclerc a little bit, but Carlos Sainz more so in 2-4. I'm loving the cut of his jib. Lest we forget, he's just jumped off the operating table. Appendicitis was his operation. That was his foible. Now he's triumphed over that. I feel like Carlos Sainz's journey is one of overcoming triumph. He doesn't have a job still for 2025, even though Gazzetta dello Sport are saying that they're in extensive advanced negotiations with Mercedes. We'll get to that though. But I want to give Carlos Sainz, this is the flower giving F1 news podcast today, and I want to give Carlos Sainz his flowers, because he's overcoming adversity. He might not be the quickest one out there. He's getting quicker. He's learning and developing the driving aspect of his game. But is anybody going to say for a second that he's quicker than Charles Leclerc or Max Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton? Absolutely not. That would be fool's gold. Nobody would espouse such nonsense. If they did, then they would lose all of their F1 credibility. But he makes up for it. And in my old age, you know, guys, I've come to appreciate those who work hard. The hair doesn't get as much ratings for me as the tortoise. I appreciate that industry, especially when people leverage industry and racecraft and savvy and devil with a view to bridge an ostensible, a material gap in terms of absolute pace to overcome. And that's what Carlos Sainz is doing. I'm liking how they're talking over at Ferrari. Frederick Vasseur, I'm going to read this out to you. His quote was something to the effect of, listen, it was a success at the Japanese Grand Prix, but that's last week's news now. We need to forget about that and move on. Every Grand Prix presents a different circumstance, a different set of problems that we need to solve for. That then, the success at Japan is sunk cost. We move on and forward. That, Frederick Vasseur, is how champions talk. Focus on the Rubik's Cube worth of problems, engineering, mechanical, driver and otherwise, that we need to sort, human resource that we need to solve for. Focus on them and solve for them. And that's what Ferrari are doing. Frederick Vasseur is a breath of fresh air here. Ferrari have had problems. Who knew 3-4 years ago that Ferrari would be here now, best of the rest by some bloody distance? And I'm here for it. War Frederick Vasseur, and seeing that the way that Frederick Vasseur is ringing out, instituting these changes at Ferrari, it does make me think about my team. My team, he says, after all the stuff that he said over the past 24 hours. It does get me to think about Mercedes and Toto Wolf's tenure. Could Mercedes do with a freshening up at the top? Who would even take over from Toto Wolf if we did switch out the team principal? Would Toto still be a 33% owner? Would he have to sell some of his share? Listen, butterfly effect. Who knows? Let's look at the championship though. Go on then. Am I talking nonsense with Carlos Sainz? Let's take a look. Lest we forget that he's missed a race. Max Verstappen currently leads on 77 points. Carlos Sainz is adrift of Max Verstappen to the tune of 22 points after 3 races. It's a lot, isn't it? Perez, second place, 13 points adrift of Max Verstappen. Charles Leclerc, 59 points, 4 points higher than his teammate, having raced one more race. I think Carlos Sainz, I'm loving Carlos Sainz's work, the cut of his jib, everything that he represents as far as industry overcoming ostensibly drivers who are more naturally talented. I'm loving his work right now. Loving it. Go on, let's talk about this upgrade very quickly. So they've got things doing, haven't they? And depending who you listen to, some people say it's just inlets. Some people say they're tinkering Ferrari. Some people say they're tinkering around with suspension at the back potentially. But listen, all that we know is they have upgrades coming, and Autosport talked to this. Let me read out some of what they said. Again, you know what, I'm going to flip back to, I'm going to read out some of what Carlos Sainz is saying so you understand why I'm so impressed with him. Backtracking, Carlos Sainz says, I think Red Bull are definitely going to have an advantage in the first third of the season until we bring one of our two upgrades that makes us fight them more consistently, explained the Spaniard. Let's go, vamos, Carlos Sainz Jr. But by that time, maybe it's a bit too late with the advantage that they might have in the championship. So, you know, let me tell you why I love why he's talking like this. He's talking about the bloody championship. Carlos Sainz is thinking about these things. The other bloody 18 on the grid are just turning up to a rate. Like, Carlos Sainz is trying to put together a package of a championship, right? He's focusing on maximising, optimising for each and every single race weekend. And I'm here for that. That's how you win championships, even if he doesn't have the minerals, the wheels underneath him. That talk is the sort of talk and thinking behind it that wins bloody championships, and I'm here for it each and every single time now. Vamos, Carlos Sainz Jr. Let me get my thing. But by that time, maybe it's a bit too late. Okay, so he's being realistic as well. Maybe it might be too late. Who'd back against Red Bull and Max Verstappen at this stage? But again, I will state for the avoidance of doubt, stranger things have happened. In the meantime, Carlos Sainz Jr. continues, we need more Australians. You see, he's doing this compartmentalisation thing, but I don't see Red Bull as a team making these mistakes very often. Frederick Vasseur speaks to this shortly, and I'll get to that quite in a minute. It's a shame because I also missed the race, which both for the team and me, it could be costly in the championship. Talking about the championship is the Spaniard. We're competing in one less race, but at the same time, we're going to give it our best shot. It's my last year in Ferrari also. So yeah, we've got nothing to lose. I mean, how else do you want your potential champions to talk, eh? How else? That's how they should be talking. Love it from Carlos Sainz Jr. We have nothing to lose. And sometimes when you drive like that, it's those guys that you want to watch out if your name is Max Verstappen. Go on then. Carlos Sainz continues, competing in one less race. I'm going to read that again. We're competing in one less race, but at the same time, and normalise for that, eh? You know, I like to do my stats and get my data read on. Normalise for that. How close would Max Verstappen be to Carlos Sainz Jr.? Had Carlos Sainz not finished or started all the races even, and not had his appendicitis surgery? Again, you can play that the other way, that Max had his DNF, but yet and still, I digress. What did Ferrari boss have to say on this per the Autosport article? Here we go. Ferrari boss Frederick Vasseur hailed the progress made with its car in areas of weakness like last year, which was of course high speed corners and tyre degradation, and the Autosport article neglects to mention, of course, translating quali pace to race trim. They are doing that. And while he is aware of the advantage, continues Autosport, Red Bull have right now, he reckons that just getting close to the pace setting team is enough to start putting it under pressure and for it to start making mistakes like what happened in Melbourne. Let's go, Frederick Vasseur, who continues, we made a huge step forward on the high speed compared to last year, and for sure Suzuka is a good example, said Frederick Vasseur. And on the tyre management side, listen, that's how champions talk. That's how champions in waiting talk. Vasseur is equally realistic about it. So here we go. This is the piece that I really like. It's so tight that I think it's crucial in my business, is humility What are we lacking from some of these other teams, if not humility? This weekend at Japan, you had 4 teams 1/10 away from each other in quali. It means that you don't have to consider that what you did in one weekend will be true the weekend afterwards. We will start from scratch next week, and we have to keep this in mind for the races ahead. Listen, I'm here for Frederick Vasseur. He's talking my language. I would love to hear a lot of Mercedes, the guys and girls from Brackley and Brixworth talking like that, but they're not for now. I've riffed on them long enough. Go on then. Carlos Sainz Jr. driver speculation. We're all aware that Alonso's extended multi-year deal at the ripe old age of 42 with Aston Martin. And whilst I'm not sure if I love or hate that for Fernando Alonso, if I'm honest with you, where do I stand? And listen, I think from a competitive standpoint, I really wanted to see Fernando Alonso in that Red Bull alongside Max Verstappen. I just think that would have been God tier, and that we'll never see that. I feel like is an opportunity lost for Fernando Alonso and F1 more broadly. However, turns out he was never offered the place in the first place. That's what he wanted, because he knows that's the best car, and Fernando is God tier at optimising for his opportunities presented. But that was never in the offing per Mark Hughes of the race. I'm glad that Fernando Alonso is hanging around. Retirement would have been the worst case scenario for F1, because he's God tier, isn't he? And again, another dude that likes to think his way through a race, and I don't hate that from Fernando Alonso, notwithstanding all of his previous indiscretions. Please see Spygate, please see Crashgate, please see 2007 Hungary, please see GP2 engine. And again, he's going to be partnering back up with Honda. He's in 2026. Honda have said that they're happy with that partnership and all has been forgiven. Fair play. Don't hate it. But then there are knock-on effects for the driver market, right? And silly season being one Carlos Sainz Jr. predominantly, most pertinently, because Lawrence Pareto has said that favourites on the team sheet as far as Carlos Sainz's next team, Sauber and Williams. Flipping Nora. So Carlos Sainz can't go in his current form. For Carlos Sainz to go to Sauber, I feel like that's a lost battalion decision, and I think Carlos Sainz at this stage of his career will think similarly. So then that only leaves Mercedes and Red Bull. I would love to see Carlos Sainz do over 2015 and 16 when he and Max Verstappen were in that Toro Rosso together, and those story and plot line, right? Max Verstappen's team, Jos Verstappen, encouraging one Helmut Marko to encourage Max Verstappen's side of the garage to operate in a way that's autonomous. Fair play. Ultimately culminating in the sacking of some of those Toro Rosso engineers, because Franz Tost wanted them to operate as one team. Helmut Marko, by extension, went and got those guys jobs because they were acting on his orders, the orders of the Red Bull GmbH consultant, the Austrian, known as Helmut Marko. And that's techie. That is techie, especially for Max Verstappen fans around the world saying that Red Bull have not been built around Max Verstappen, aren't built in his image. I think Jos Verstappen and Helmut Marko will indeed insist. That was the cost of business as far as signing Max Verstappen, wasn't it? They didn't want to go into anyone's junior program. Jos Verstappen didn't want that, because many F1 drivers' career has gone to die, right? Gone to rest in junior programs of Red Bull, Kvyat, Gasly, for that. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't work out well for everyone. So I understand Jos Verstappen's trepidation, but again, roll that forward. If you are Carlos Sainz in 2024, would you want to partner with Max Verstappen? If you are any F1 driver, be that Alex Albon, is the upside of the RB20 sufficient to offset the downside of being in that team that's been built around Max Verstappen? Not preferential treatment. I don't think the car's been built around Max Verstappen, although it does suit his driving style, right? Super sensitive, on the nose, super twitchy turning. You're lest we forget, Alex Albon described it as having the mouse on 1,000 sensitivity, right? That's how the car steers, but that's how Max Verstappen likes it, and that's how cars, that's how you build a quick car in 2024 in these rules and regulations. So maybe Carlos doesn't fancy Red Bull, and maybe he shouldn't fancy Red Bull. Although talking like he's talking, I wouldn't bet against him fancying his chances, as outrageous as that sounds, against Maximilian Verstappen. But Gazzetta dello Sport is saying that the favourite, the principal target of Carlos Sainz, because he's in advanced negotiations with them in real time, is Mercedes. No, I don't know how I feel about that. Mercedes potentially for a 1+1 year contract and then go over to Honda, to Audi in 2026. Sigh, maybe. Who knows? We'll see, right? The weird and wacky world of F1. Very, very techie. But we'll see. 7 days away from a Chinese Grand Prix, and I'm here for it. I've just got you guys in the chat, man. I've been waiting for chat, and now all of a sudden it's just popped up. Let me have a look what Carlos has morphed into, the Professing 2024 Pank, and I love that. Alluding to one Alain Prost. Depends if you want to think long term, says Ryan, and outlast Max at Red Bull. Outlast him. I think he's older than him. Ryan, I think he's older. Troy says Alonso not having the fastest car was created by his own career choices. Oh, the humanity. You guys are going in on Fernando. CBD says the fact that Mercedes are offering Max and Carlos better deals than offered Lewis, that's crazy. CBD, that upsets me again. I'm not even going to tell no lies. That's bonkers. Troy, Alonso having the fastest car was created by his own career choices. I think that every driver should get 1 year contract. Go on, and let's talk about this very quickly before I run away. The 1 year contract thing is a bit techie. Because if I'm a driver and I'm offered a 1 year contract, that doesn't necessarily imbue me with confidence, right? That doesn't make me think that my team are loving and supporting of me. It just makes me think, well, these guys, they're looking, this is performance related now. What have you done for me lately? And we know that that's what F1 is, but I mean, if I'm a young buck, if I'm Lando Norris or like, I don't know, or Lewis Hamilton. No, if I'm a young buck genuinely, then I give me a multi-year contract, 2 to 3 years, to show confidence, right? As soon as you start trotting out these 1+1 years, it's all very performance related. And what have you done for me? Is there a better deal on the market, a better driver that we can, an Antonelli that you're looking to replace? I don't know. It's techie. So if I'm a young but like a Lando or a Charles especially, or a Piastri, you need to give me a 3-4 year at the very least, if you want to show confidence in me, eh? Matthew says ditch Stroll. Oh, it's not going to happen though, is it, Matthew? How can Lawrence ditch his son? That's why he's in this game in the first place, right? That's his raison d'etre. Like Ryan says, 1 year contracts. Would the driver ask for more money? Yeah, so Ryan, I think my very noddy understanding of the way that contracts works, if you are, I think you'll have to offset a shorter term contract with more money. If it's a longer term, obviously if it's a longer term contract, by virtue of the more years, the absolute value of the contract will be more money, but the annual value will be less than what you'd be giving on an annual basis, like a 1+1. I think that's my very noddy understanding. CBD, Carlos to Mercedes for 2 years will be the beginning of the end for George. You guys really like to go hard on George, don't you? Oh, the humanity. I think George has got a bad rap. Listen, okay, let's talk about the foibles of George Russell very quickly. Towards something about that dude, towards the latter stages of Grand Prix, when there's an overtake in the offing, he loses his mind, doesn't he? Like, composure isn't something that he has in abundance in those circumstances specifically. That's not to say, though, that George isn't God tier. All the race savvy and ability to manage the strategy in real time that I've praised Carlos Sainz for, I think George has in abundance, and he's bloody quick. Like, go and check him out in like his record in the Formula. F2, was it GP? No, F2, was it GP2 when George was doing it? I can't remember, but what's known as F2 now and F3, like he's winning these Formula in his maiden voyage. He's God tier, man. And that's not to say, by the way, that F2 and F3 success is any guarantee of future success in F1, because it doesn't always work out. I remember looking at Hülkenberg's record, and it in my mind, as I looked at it on Wikipedia, it kind of mirrored the historic record of Lewis Hamilton. He was winning like Formula in his maiden voice. Like, he looked incredible on paper. Hülkenberg looked like, I remember literally thinking Hülkenberg was going to be the next one coming up. That literally was going to be the next Lewis Hamilton by virtue of his junior career. But sometimes it doesn't work like that. What the investment bods say, that past performance isn't necessarily indicative of future gain. Like, you can't. History doesn't repeat. It does rhyme, but it doesn't always repeat. So I don't know. But I digress. MA Khan, best car for Lewis. Cameron, Mercedes have given Lewis. Listen to me, MA Khan. I've done that. I don't want to get back into that Mercedes things. I've done that already. If you rewind I just don't know why. Oh, MA Khan, you've got me there. Scorched earth, Cameron. Mercedes have given Lewis the fastest car for 8 of 12 seasons. The W. The worst car Lewis has had in his career is better than the best car Alonso's. Listen, MA Khan, I'll say this again. I don't want to get Mercedes. You guys love it when I go scorched earth for Mercedes. I'm guessing, MA Khan, and that's not why you've asked that question or made that statement. But I hate the commoditization of sport athletes is all too common in April of 2024. Where we talk in these terms, we use adjectives like grateful and thankful. And I'm just like, what? Lewis, not just Lewis, but these drivers get into that car and risk their life. When they buckle up that 6-point harness, they risk their life each and every single bloody time. So grateful isn't necessarily the word that I would use. That's not the sentiment that I would expect from Mercedes. We know, to your point, MA Khan, we understand that the most difficult thing for a driver to get in his career in F1 is a car capable of winning the championship, of course. But great gratitude isn't the word, right? Because it's a symbiotic relationship, the driver and the team. Indeed, one could argue that the driver is fundamental, instrumental even, in making sure that they develop a car capable of winning the championship. So, I don't know, on a sliding scale as a percentage of the whole, is it more the driver or the car? It's a hard one to debate this. Hence why, when people start talking about Lewis should be grateful or Seb should be grateful for the red, like, I don't know, I can't get down with that terminology, MA car. I understand your point, but this is the argument that I was having over Twitter last night at like 2 a.m. in the morning when people are telling me, oh, Cameron, as a Mercedes fan, what do you want to be? You need to be grateful. Don't criticise Mercedes, notwithstanding the fact that they haven't. Behave yourself. What are we talking about? Of course, right, look, MA, you see what you've got me into, MA card, scorched earth, Cameron, yet again. I just can't get down. Look, Mercedes are $1 billion company. Daimler AG are like their parent company, still I think in 2024, $1 billion entity. I am Cameron F1. I don't even own I have a mortgage, I lease my own car. I know nothing, Jon Snow. I don't even own my own house. Like, what do I know? I don't know anything. So far for it to be, I'm not to be the source of criticism here. If Mercedes are underperforming and I want to speak some truth as to what I'm seeing and hearing, by the way, on the download, then that's my prerogative. I am nobody in this space. Mercedes-Benz, AMG, Petronas, however, are $1 billion entity. And so, I only say that to say this. As far as accountability, of course we can hold them to a higher state of accountability than me. And I'm not saying anything that's not false. Listen, if we're talking about the other decisions that they've made over the past 24 to 36 months, they've built a dodgy car. Granted, mistakes happen. Adrian Newey did it with the MP4 18 or 14, whatever it was. Built a car that wasn't even bloody safe to drive. Mistakes happen. The goats do it. Cool, forgive them for that. They made the decision to pursue that failed design philosophy, barking at the wrong tree for all of 24 months. Forgive them for that. They diversified their resource out of 2021 into 2022 ahead of a brand new set, a paradigm shift of regulations. Forgive them for that. Another mistake. They didn't offer Lewis Hamilton the ambassadorial role. Forgive them for that. Another mistake. They didn't offer him a multi-year contract at the ripe old age of 39. Forgive them for that. You can understand even, but they have been making these mistakes for a while now. Toto Wolf doesn't even know what he's talking about when he gets a mic in front of him. Do I go here? Am I going to go to the Japanese Grand Prix? I'm going to work from home. No, I'll go to the Japanese Grand Prix now because it's too important. What, Lewis Hamilton won't even look good in those red overalls. Lewis Hamilton is going to have to get used to the pictorial of the back of our like he's just like they're just talking, right? Mistakes made this season. Look at Jeddah. We know that Jeddah, every single year that we've raced at Jeddah, there has been an early safety car anywhere between lap 1 and 20. So bake your strategy around that, right? It's always happening again. Past isn't necessarily an indication of future performance, but if that's happened every single year, it's 100% hit rate. Surely you've got to build in a strategy anyway. Surely build it around what's happened, right? Like, calc that. Take your head above the parapet, Mercedes strategy bods, and look what's going on in real time. Surely, is it just mistake? It's like a cacophony of errors. It's just mistake after mistake after mistake. And what I shouldn't say the truth. What is this, Stalin's Russia, where we can't criticize Mercedes because they've won 8 championships? What? It doesn't even make no sense. I'm going to reiterate that for the avoidance of that and tell me how stupid I sound. We shouldn't criticize Mercedes because they've won 8 championships. How daft do I sound, M.A. Khan? That just sounds like nonsense. Like they're 2 separate entities, right? 8 Constructors' Championship. Of course, they're worthy of praise for that. But that's banked now. That's sunk cost. Parlay that forward. What are we doing now? Making mistakes. Dodgy car. PR faux pas. Dodgy social media. Let Lewis Hamilton go. There's just these things need to get discussed. We could talk about Lewis Hamilton. Maybe you don't want to give him a multi-year contract at the age of 39. Kimi Antonelli coming into the... I understand the rationale behind that. But you need to litigate for all these. The pit stops have been bad historically. Okay, so they've made improvements this season, but they've been bad for ages. Strategy, I'll never forget Imola a couple of years ago when they had the opportunity to pit Lewis early, put him onto Inters, didn't do... Like, they've just been making mistakes, man. And for me to sit here and censor myself about their mistakes, to not call a spade because they've had success in the past, that doesn't even make sense, man. It's daft, isn't it, Brannigan? It just doesn't make sense. Like, I'm not being true to myself. Like, I'm a truth sayer. Oh, Cameron, you need to be more grateful for the 6 championships they've given to you. Piss off. What are you talking about? Nonsense. Just that. And you know what? I'll say this. Before I run away, I'll let you know about this. Proselytizing isn't something that just riles me up. And as far as F1 as a sport, ever since I've been watching F1, it's always struck me as a sport that's been very proselytizing and exclusive as a club and very gatekeepy and protectionist over what it has, right? Circling the wagons each and every single time. Oh, so you're a superstar driver with millions of dollars who's got 3 championships. Oh, come in. Welcome, Mr. Stewart. Oh, you're just a random F1 YouTuber, Cameron F1. Nope. Nope, you stay over there. It's always been one of these us and them type things, right? It's changing today in 2024. But every time I hear these noddy bods on F1 Twitter telling me about, I need to be grateful for the championship car that they gave my driver. Grateful? You sound like the FIA. You're using it like F1 and Liberty Media. It reminds me, instantly I'm reminded of the thing that's always had me recoil from F1 as a sport and as a franchise and a sporting proposition. Gatekeeping. gatekeeping and proselytizing and condescending. Oh, we know more than you, and you don't know anything. You've been watching the sport and buying our merch and contributing to our coffers for all of your life, 30 plus years, but you know nothing, Jon Snow. Go over there, Cameron F1. I know everything. You shouldn't feel like piss off, man. Honestly, it's really jarring, man. There's something wrong with this space that we can be like this to each other. Like, do you know what I mean? So the sneatery and the snobbishness. Honestly, Pancon, I don't know. Perhaps 26 is Ferrari's time. Will be interesting. Pancon, I'm hoping that Ferrari kick on, mate. I'm just loving the cut of their jib this year. Just not shouting too loud about their progress and humility. Something Mercedes, it feels like from the outside, something Mercedes at least have lacked for the past bloody 36 months at least. But I digress. What do I know? Russell is also the type of driver to stay in and go management. He's a very clever chap. Ryan, I agree with you, mate. I think George, I'm dotting around here with his subject topics, but I think George is worthy of some praise. He gets a lot of hate because Lewis Hamilton fans think that he's sabotaging their driver, which I think is off the mark. That's tin hat foil chat there, in my humble opinion. But I digress. Listen, you guys have been legends. Let me read out one more. Snivels, Williams, McLaren, Red Bull, Ferrari, they've all won 7 to 8 more championships. Everyone is allowed when it comes to Snivels. You've nailed it and said it more eloquently than I. How, like, I will state again. This sentence is the sentence that puts me over the edge. How can you say, because Mercedes have had success for an extended period of time, that their mistakes and errors and noddy decision making isn't worthy of criticism? If you were to say Mercedes aren't worthy of criticism, that's a statement that can stand up. You can argue that statement right in and of itself. But to link the causality that Mercedes aren't worthy of criticism, that you shouldn't criticise Mercedes because of their 8 championships, I think that just doesn't stack up. That's the most illogical statement that I've ever heard in my life. And to say that I, Cameron F1, noddy content creator, part-time accountant, I shouldn't talk about these things because of the 8 championships is absolute bull feathers, nonsense. And I just think, people, for whatever reason, logic isn't some people's forte. Passion and toxicity and tribalism is absolutely their PhD's topic. Maybe I just need to come up. Aesop's fable from all this. Maybe I just need to come off Twitter. Stop socialising with all these Monday morning quarterbacks. But I digress. Thank you so much for watching. See you now next time. No further questions, Your Honour.